Hi! Welcome back to our channel.
We are the Witches of the Crystal Garden.
I'm Joan.
I'm Dan, and today we are going to go over what is witchcraft and the different kinds of witches that you can be.
These are just kind of basic with just a few little tidbits of each little different kind because there's lots and lots of different kinds out there.
Yeah, maybe farther down the line we'll do like a video dedicated to each kind of witch or something. I don't know, but there's a lot. There's a lot to cover, so we're only going to give you
just a little tidbit.
Just a little bit of the tap.
Just the tip.
We're going to get kicked off of YouTube.
I hate myself.
So the definition of witchcraft, which I got online, is a religious practice involving magic and an affinity with nature, usually within a pagan tradition. So that is what, if you just literally Google what is witchcraft, that's what's going to come up. I think that it's mostly true. I mean, it is a definition.
Right.
But like in the witch community, when you talk to people and you hear like how other people talk about it, I feel like loosely we say religion more. Like it's just a practice. And then your religion can influence it. Definitely, a lot of people in witchcraft have an affinity with nature. That's a really big part. You don't have to have one. I do feel like it is like it's typical thing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of witchcraft people are pagan and Wicca, and those are really big religions into nature. But we'll kind of go over that in a second. So
when you hear the word paganism or pagan, a lot of times you're also going to hear witch, Wiccan, pagan a lot together. But they all kind of mean something a little bit different. So paganism is really kind of an umbrella term for all three of those because it kind of really applies numerous different faiths into that umbrella. So Wicca falls under that umbrella along with pagan, but not all pagans are Wiccan. All Wiccans are witches, but not all witches are Wiccan. Does that make sense? Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Or Wiccans are pagan, but not all pagans are witches. Yeah. Some witches are pagans, but some are not. Some pagans practice witchcraft while others choose not to. See, I say it out loud and I feel like this doesn't make sense.
It's just so like...
It's like very contradictory, but it's true though because...
It is. So you can be, if there was like a graph, here's my pen for my graph, and there's paganism up here. Out of paganism, you can be a witch, and you can be in Wicca, and you can do witchcraft.
Maybe we should make like a little graphic just to pop it in there.
They interblock in different sections. So for us, we would say that we are witches. But we are not Wiccan.
Right.
We are more just pagan going down to witchcraft. But even on that note, you can do witchcraft and not be pagan.
Yeah, because you can just be a witch.
Yeah.
Without that, like, religious backing
connection
behind it. Yeah.
Because we're kind of on, like, the edge of being pagan and non-religious.
Right in the middle.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that, like, we agree with in paganism and that we do. We're not really big on, like, deities and stuff like that, which is very big with Wicca and in paganism and stuff.
But again, with witchcraft... It's all about what you make it, all about what you want it to be. So if you want to worship deities and, be more Wiccan or be more pagan and really, stick, quote unquote, to the book, even though there's not really a book. Again, this is still a learning journey for everybody. Yeah. Whether you've been doing it for years and years or you're just starting out, like I'm constantly learning new things and trying new things to learn what works best for me, and it can change throughout time.
Yeah, because I know when we started and we were like, oh, we're Wiccan.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. This is what we're doing. And then the more we get into it, the more, like the deity thing is probably the biggest part for us. Where we're like, well,
don't really
think
connect
it's more
with it.
Paganism. And then we're also like, well, maybe not even quite paganism.
Right.
But it's like, especially witchcraft in general is so like loose that you can do whatever.
Do what you want.
Fine. There's no wrong way.
It's all about what empowers you. So for us, the main ways that we practice witchcraft are typically meditating, using herbs in our rituals and spells, as well as scrying.
I think a lot of it is meditation for us.
Yeah, that's a big one for me. Like, I think that's mostly what I do. I pretty much meditate every day, every night, really. And every once in a while I'll do, it's not like a huge big ritual or spell or anything like that, but I get my herbs out and do a little...
Yeah, we haven't done it like super recently, but like we usually, like the biggest rituals I do are with you.
Yeah.
So like we'll set up a whole thing, a whole mood, and we'll do a ritual together. I do more of like spells and mini rituals by myself.
Yeah. To be honest, it's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, life is busy with a job and trying to be social at the same time and everything. Like sometimes you come home from work and I'm going to light a candle and sit there and meditate for 10 minutes. Put my intentions out for the day, let go of what I wanted, whatever happened with the day, let go of that, release that energy. energy and just kind of chill out for the day, or same thing in the morning, kind of put out that energy of what I want to receive throughout the day.
There are other ways, and there's more like other people will tell you that they're the basic witchcraft practices that they do. These are just the ones that we typically lean towards. Look into all those individually. Look into meditating for one, because one, even if you don't even go into the witchcraft like or Wiccan or whatever, if you're not even interested in it, meditation's just good for you. Yeah. So like, you know,
connect yourself to the universe, man.
Dude, connect. I mean, I love herbs, and you can, like, those can be as simple as just drinking tea, honestly.
Right.
Or, you know,
or burning
cooking,
sage or rosemary.
Anything like that can include, you know, herbs in that.
Yeah.
Rituals and spells are definitely, like, a witchcraft thing, but, like, those are the basic ones that if you're gonna talk witchcraft, you're gonna do those. And then scrying is more, I would say it's a little bit more not beginner.
Yeah.
I would definitely do your research on that before doing it, just because you might get spooked. You might see things you don't know, and you might do something not right. So definitely look into that one. That one I would not just jump in and being like, okay, I'm gonna go do this. Like, do your research first. Scrying falls under divination. It's when people, you know, read tarot, or they read your tea leaves, or they look in the mirror and they do all that. Any of that kind of work. Just before you do any one of them, I would just kind of look into...
Do your research.
Yeah. Where, like, witchcraft is very loose and you can do a lot of things, but certain practices, there's a lot of, at least advice on how to start off and how to, like, not get yourself, like, scared.
Yeah, because sometimes it can happen.
You know.
I mean, you're staring at your crystal ball and then you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like what?
What?
Or you know, like, especially when you start reading tarot and stuff like that, like you pull, like, you know, the death card and everyone's like, oh my god, I'm gonna know someone who dies. And that's not
true.
Not it.
Yeah.
That's not what it means typically. It's not, like, each card means a lot of different things, and people think death and people think that the devil are like these like
big
all
bad
like
cards.
huge. Yeah, it's the media usually pushing it in like a horror movie where they're like, you got the death card. Oh no. And
you
you're
have
like,
3 days to live.
That's not how it works. It's always just good to kind of understand what it is before going into it. Typically, you lean towards a type of witchcraft or the type of witch that you are, just in the things that you like. I like herbs and plants, and I do a lot of nature work, so I consider myself a green witch.
I consider myself a little bit more to be eclectic, where I'm kind of doing a little bit of everything from different aspects of witchcraft. I like kitchen witchery and green witchery, and just kind of, again, making it my own. And sometimes, I mean, I was raised Catholic and Christian, so it's kind of hard sometimes to stray away from that, because it was like beat into my fucking head.
Same.
So I kind of, not that it's like a super religious thing of like Jesus and God and all that kind of thing, but kind of those little aspects are incorporated into my craft, as much as I probably don't realize it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, honestly, probably. But, yeah.
Spiraling.
Now we're gonna go over the types of witches that are kind of, I wouldn't say generic, but like the basic ones that if you're starting off, those are the ones I'd look at first. And then definitely, you know, just look up. There's tons and tons. There's lists everywhere. Just go with your gut, and you don't have to pick one and then be like, oh, I guess this is me now.
Right.
Like, that's not it.
Right.
Like I said, I identify as a green witch, but that doesn't mean I'll always be green witch, and
Right.
it doesn't mean that I don't do anything else
Besides green witch, yeah.
I just feel a huge pull to like nature and just like all that kind of like work for me as in nature. I don't know if I do like any spell where I don't use any nature in it. That one I identify with, but in a month maybe I'll be like, nope, astrology, let's go.
Like, I'm a sea witch now.
Yes, you can change what you like, and you don't even have to change it to just being eclectic. Like if you try other stuff, you can just change what the kind of witch you are. It's fine. Again, so I'm a green witch, and green witches typically work with the earth, anything nature related, herbs, you know, all of that. Feel really close to nature. Like I even say some of my like meditation time isn't necessarily me sitting and meditating, it's me just going on a walk in nature. Throughout my day, I know like if I'm having a stressful time, I need to go hang out in the forest for a little bit, and then I feel a lot better. A lot of green witch stuff is just nature based. If you have plants and you just want to use plants for everything, then yeah, look into green witchery because it's a great time. Just
Little
saying,
woodland elf.
go for it. Oh my god. That's my dream. I'm going to one day just become a woodland elf, and I'll be like, bye.
See you later.
I want to live in a cottage. Don't ever talk to me unless if you're the trees.
Alright, so next up is kitchen witchery. So it's either called a kitchen witch or sometimes it's called a cottage witch, which typically they bring magic into everyday life and just kind of like the mundane chores around the house. So a lot of times kitchen witches will either enchant the herbs and spices that they put into a meal for their family in a positive way, just to bring blessings onto the family, as well as they kind of typically make herbal oils and tonics to heal.
Kitchen witchery is really cool. Like, I want to get into that way more because it's literally, I feel like you're like a little witch in like one of those like movies or something where you're like sweeping and it's magical.
Yeah.
When I'm cleaning, it's not magical, and I am not happy, and I'm not in the mood for it. So one day I will be able to do that. Cooking point. Also, I'm usually like throwing it in the oven. I'm like, just cook, I gotta eat.
Right. But like, I'm hungry.
But if I could have like that like moment where I'm just like, no, here's the seasonings that are gonna bring me peace today, and this is this. Like, I want to do that. I just am never in the mood when I'm doing those things. So it's definitely one of my like ones that I aspire to be.
But I mean, even starting out, if you wanted to start as simple as just having the intention of what you want, not necessarily even using certain herbs and spices for certain properties that they may have. It's just about the intention.
Yeah, no, it's true. I just want to have an everyday
just
witchy life. Like I feel like if I'm not by a plant, I'm like, I'm useless.
I'm dying. No.
It's like an earthbender when you're like on water. You're like, what do I do now?
My power.
Next, we'll kind of go over hedge witches. Hedge witches are really close to green witches, where if you think of it, like green witches are kind of like the witches that work in the garden, where head witches kind of are like the forest witches. They're a little bit more solitary and they're a little bit more deep rooted into like nature goals, but a lot of times hedge witches are solitary workers. They're very, very spiritual. A lot of them are very, very in tune to nature. I even did some research on them, and you know, a lot of them say that like they can even do like astro projecting.
Oh, nice.
And they have like a very spiritual level that links up with nature, where green witchery is a little bit more, I wouldn't even say shallow, but it's just not
toned down. Yeah,
it's not as intense as hedge witch. Like I said, goals, but I'm not quite there yet.
So another type of witch is a sea witch, which I know.
I mean, you're not wrong. She was a sea witch.
Just saying.
She came down in a bubble. You're gonna
tell me I'm wrong?
We're not making fun of them.
We're not. No, not at all. Typically, sea witches usually define themselves as a witch that works with sea and ocean energies. And not all sea witches will worship deities, but a lot of times they will worship sea deities, kind of associated with it, like Poseidon and Aphrodite, some other kind of sea gods. They may also kind of choose to work with different water spirits as well, such as mermaids and sea monsters and those kind of things.
Next up are elemental witches. So these ones usually find an affinity to one element and they work directly with that element. So like some people feel really drawn to fire, so they'll be a fire witch. Typically when they do that, that means almost everything and anything they do is revolved around that element. That's like their own deity. It's what they like, you know, draw all their power from. And typically too, they will not work with the opposing element. So if you're a fire one, you aren't really going to work with water very much, just because, you know, they don't work well together typically. Elemental witches, you can pick one or the other, and a lot of people will say that if you do elemental and you do earth, it's very close to green witchery, but it's different. You would know. Like, if you feel like you're an elemental and you're an earth one, then that's what you are. I do think that there are some elemental witches that get into alchemy. Like, I think that is a big part of it.
Okay.
I don't know that much about elemental witches. I know that generally it's the four main ones that you work with: the earth, wind, fire, and water. Earth, air, fire, water. The four. You know what I'm talking about. It's fine. I'm having
Earth, Wind, and Fire. What was that band? It wasn't an Earth, Wind,
and Fire?
Yeah.
It's Do that. Plus one. The 21st night of September. Earth, Wind, and Fire Witch. And that's it. You follow that band. That's all you do.
That's all you do.
That's the kind of witch you
worship
are.
them as we should. Honestly,
everybody
should worship
that song
them.
Is the best song.
It's a bop. Who doesn't know that song? Cosmic witches use planetary and celestial energies in their practice. So like astrology, star work, kind of deep space work. I find this one very interesting because there's so many different types of it too. So there's stellar, which primarily works with the stars and constellations. Astrology, you know, that's the typical zodiac and astrology, natal charts and all that kind of stuff. Solar, which primarily works with the sun and solar magics.
Which that sounds interesting to me. I don't work with the sun enough, you know?
Right. So if you utilize the sun in your craft, you are practicing a type of cosmic witchcraft. So like with your plants, they need sun.
Oh my god.
Lunar, which I do a lot of lunar stuff.
I think a lot of witches end up working with the moon. Yes. It's the moon. We all love her.
So if you work with the phases of the moons, you're practicing cosmic witchcraft. And then planetary, which those are ones that work with the planets. Planet witches can also be broken down further into witches, but we ain't got time for that.
Not for this episode.
No.
But that's kind of cool, because I mean, like, I feel like everyone kind of works with the moon.
Yeah.
And then, like, a little bit
astrology.
With the stars. Yeah. But to, like, really deep dive and be, like, a cosmic witch sounds cool.
Super
as
cool.
Hell
Hell
like,
yeah. I want to be a cosmic witch. Shit.
The next one that I found that I really liked actually is a secular witch. So a secular witch separates their witchcraft from their faith. So either they don't have a faith to put into it, or that they do not cross paths whatsoever. So their witchcraft is their witchcraft, their religion is their religion, and they do not intersect at all. And this one interests me because, like I said earlier, like, I know we're both a little bit like this, where we don't necessarily push our beliefs into witchcraft as much. Like, there are things, and I do definitely, like, connect, and I do things for certain, like, connections through it all. But, like, I'm a little bit on the edge of it. But the secular, which really is interesting, because you just do the witchcraft to do the witchcraft, which you can do. Like, it's totally, like, a thing.
Yeah, like, but, you can just be a witch and be a witch and not,
but you can,
again.
You can also be religious and do witchcraft that has nothing to do with your religion. There's a solitary witch that is just, you practice on your own, you don't work with a coven. I want to say, like, knowing solitary witches, it's usually people who kind of don't talk about it. They don't talk about their practice. They don't really want other people's input. Yeah. Not that there aren't solitary witches that want people's input, and we'll talk about it. It's just generally it's people who really practice on their own and don't really connect it with other people. So you don't get a coven. You typically don't really talk about it.
I mean, even though that, you know, we do this together and this is our journey together, like, sometimes I still kind of consider myself a solitary witch, because for the most part I'm doing stuff on my own. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, we don't do like a ritual a week or something.
Yeah. It was different when we lived together, but now that we don't, it's hard.
I know. Good times.
Eclectic witch. So for me, I consider myself more of an eclectic witch, which can kind of mean different things for different witches, but typically it's one who follows more than one specific tradition or path or culture. So it's just kind of, again, incorporating a little bit of everything that we've already talked about with the different witches. Just kind of, again, witchcraft is your own thing. So that's what I've made it, with taking little things from each way to practice.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
There are many different witches that we didn't even go over. We definitely can in the future. These are the ones that are most common. So, like, if you do search, these are the ones that you're going to come up with probably the most. Right. I think they're a good starting point. I wouldn't go to anything super crazy when you start off, because you're going to overwork yourself.
I mean, unless you already have that connection with it, and then you're like, you know what,
follow your heart.
Right.
I think these are good ones to, like, start looking into. If none of these ones interest you, well, then there's always a bunch of different ones. They're like electronic witches and stuff.
Oh, tech witches?
Tech witches.
Which I do a lot of tech witch shit.
We do for each other.
We do,
I will say, here and there. Like, there's a lot of that stuff, too, that's, like, really cool to look into.
And all the information that we gave you today, I mean, that is just, like, a brief little bullet point. If you're interested in one of them, do your research and really look into it.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't mind doing a video on each witch.
Yeah, spend some really in-depth, deep dives into it,
into
for sure.
Histories and stuff like that, because there's a lot of cool stuff that goes around. Like, the sea witches really interest me because they really apparently they really like folklore about seas and stuff. Not that, you know, the rest of us don't love folklore, but it was like a pinpoint on, like, their thing is like folklore.
Yeah, and same thing with like the cosmic witches. I mean, there's so many different types, like planetary witches. Like, they pick certain planets and just focus on, like, that planet's energy and stuff, which that's wild.
Sounds real cool.
That's really cool.
We need a good telescope. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode about witches and a little bit about witchcraft. You know, we're starting off our channel with doing very, like, light introductory stuff. If you guys are really interested in anything specific, we can try and get more into it. It's definitely, like, down the road idea, but we figured we'll start at the beginning and work our way in. Kind of like, if you are starting your journey, you can work with us on that. I guess.
Let us know down in the comments if you want us to deep dive into one of these types of witches.
And also let us know what kind of witch you are if you already know, or ones that you're debating on being, or anything like that. We would love to hear your journey.
Yes.
You can tell us on here, or you can always message us on Instagram. We're pretty good at getting to comments and on messages. We're trying to be better. We'd love to talk to you guys about it. Like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram.
That's it.
Hope you enjoyed.
Bye.